Ooh, we got Curious George and the pizza. What's he gonna do now? George was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today he wasn't just curious, he was excited. So excited, in fact, that he was turning flips and standing on his head. Uh-oh, look what's happening on that chair. A little girl in George's building had invited him to her pizza party. George had never been to a pizza party before, but he loved parties and he loved pizza, so he knew it had to be good. Here's the invitation. George, it's time for the pizza party, said the man in the yellow hat. Have fun, and remember, be on your best behavior. George got to the party in perfect time. Hi, George, called out the little girl. But oh, what was all of this? The children were wearing puffy white chef's hat and checkered aprons. Like that. George got a hat and an apron too. The best was yet to come. They weren't just going to eat pizza, they were going to make it too. Hey, we've made pizza before. Everyone will get a piece of pizza dough to roll out and make a special pizza, explained the girl's mother. There were many little lumps of dough, but first let's play some games. You guys remember when we made our own pizzas? You guys put sauce and cheese, and if you wanted olives or pepperoni. Everyone into the living room to play Pin the Pepperoni on the Pizza. Everyone, that is, except George. He was curious about the pieces of dough. George thought and thought. If lots of little pieces of dough were good, maybe one huge one would be even better. Look at that pizza he's thinking about is bigger than him. He gathered the lumps of dough together and squished and squashed them until they became the biggest piece of dough he'd ever seen. What fun! Maybe rolling it out would be even more fun. He's got his rolling pin to roll it out. George poured flour out on the table, and he rolled and rolled and rolled the dough with a rolling pin. It was messy work. First he bumped over one of the chairs. Crash! Then he knocked over the sack of flour. The flour looked like snow lying on the floor of the kitchen. George liked snow, though, so he didn't mind at all. Soon he had gotten the dough nice and thin. Well, it's going off the table, though. How are you going to get pizza toppings to stick? Oh, no, look at what happened. How big it got. But the thinner it got, the farther it spread out. Before he knew it, the dough covered the table, then the chairs, and then George. Without the flour, it started to stick to everything, including George. George stopped to think. Maybe the dough was better off in small pieces after all. Oh, wow, it got so big. Oh, George got a pair of scissors and began cutting up the dough into lots of different shapes. He thought everyone would be pleased. Look at all the shapes he's cutting it into. George, what have you done to the kitchen? The little girl's mother didn't look very happy. I think it's time for you to go home now. How surprised and sad George was. He didn't really think he was doing anything wrong. Just then, the children burst into the kitchen and saw the mess George had made. George, what happened? Asked one boy. The other children looked at the shapes George had made with wide eyes. Wow, George, I've never seen pizza dough like that before, said the little girl, smiling. Oh, so she's feeling a little excited about that. Well, said her mother, if you can clean up this mess quickly, George, I suppose you can still stay to make pizza. All these kids are feeling happy about it. The children all helped George clean the kitchen. He was lucky to have so many good friends. As they worked, they talked about the pizza. I'm going to make a pizza that looks like a star, said one little boy. And I'm going to make one that looks like a house, said the girl. Oh, good, they're all finding their own shapes. And here he is, throwing it up in the air. Once the kitchen was clean, the real fun began. All of the children picked out perfect pieces of dough and got to work. They spooned on tomato sauce and sprinkled on cheese. They added lots of vegetables and pepperoni. Look, they all got their different shapes. And look, here they go. The pizzas looked wonderful. One of them looked like a rainbow, another like a stop sign, and still another like a balloon. There was even a pizza that looked curiously like George. Which one's your favorite? Which one do you think looks like George? Well, George, said the little girl's mother, the pizzas taste great, and thanks to you, they look wonderful too. Everyone agreed it was the best pizza anyone had ever seen or tasted. For the second time that day, George was so happy that he turned flips and stood on his head. Of course, it was a little harder to turn flips with so much pizza in his belly, but George didn't mind. It had been a wonderful pizza party. The end.